Thank you very much for staying with us here on Sun News Network. I am Adrienne Batra, and an interesting story coming out of the UN in New York. Well, a UN interpreter was doing her best, as it were, when it came to some affairs that were happening on the UN floor. She said a few things that I suspect are really much on the minds of many, many people. She had a hot mic, and of course what that means in our business is that means it was on. And she was being very candid and very blunt about the UN proceedings and how there were so many people that were so prepared to lambaste Israel, but there weren't enough people talking about supporting Israel. Well, to sort of unfold a lot of this for us, I'm joined in our Toronto studio by the Deputy Director of Research for the Center for Israel and Jewish Affairs, Noah Shack. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so this UN interpreter in a bit of hot water for her hot mic. What happened?
Well, this is a very interesting thing to see. These UN committees are so scripted and so routine that to peel back the curtain and hear about what the people who are actually watching them think is a great thing to see. So I understand you're going to show the clip in a minute.
Yes, well, in fact, thank you for doing that. It's taking my job over here. This is great. Okay, let's show the clip.
When you have 5 statements, not 5, but like a total of 10 resolutions on Israel and Palestine, there's got to be something. C'est un peu trop, non? I mean, I know it's yes, it's right, but it's not the. There's other really bad shit happening. Nobody says anything about the other stuff. Apologies.
She apologized, but I think that she expressed a sentiment, Noah, that a lot of people have on their mind. Of course, we don't know her name. She is this unnamed UN interpreter. I'm sure the U.S. media will crawl through every Facebook page, every tweet, and find out who she is and what she's all about, and of course her political background and all of that stuff. But interestingly, Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said, hey, look, she's always got a job in Israel if anything goes awry at the UN. But even the seriousness of what she was referring to, let's talk about that, because that is, as I mentioned, she's saying things that I think are on a lot of people's mind. We see this UN body, kind of constantly going after Israel for unfairly. We even saw them putting Saudi Arabia, for example, on their human rights boards last week. I mean, all of this nonsense that's taking place at the UN.
Yeah, I mean, she mentioned 10 resolutions. There's a total of 22 that are going to come forward. And this preoccupation with Israel and one-sided, single-minded focus, it does a real disservice to the UN.
And these are all targeted against Israel? All of these 22 resolutions?
That's right. And, the UN was designed to do battle with human rights abusers. And instead it's being used to shield them from getting any attention and having any redress for the problems that are happening there. You have countries, you mentioned Saudi Arabia, China, Russia, Cuba. These countries were all just recently named to the Human Rights Council. And you can see that they're the ones driving this agenda, using the UN to shield themselves. As long as all the attention's on Israel,
that's right,
nobody's paying attention to them.
It's the great distraction, not to mention, of course, what's going on in Syria, the constant issue there. And that is never ending in sight. We're going to talk a little bit about more of that later in the show. But I really appreciate your time and putting this into some perspective for us. That's great. Thank you very much. Noah Shack is the Deputy Director of Research for the Center for Israel and Jewish Affairs here in Toronto. Well, coming up are your hard news headlines.